Wow, that thing between your legs is so big. The words echoed through the grand hall of the Jem'Hadar capital, stunning the assembled dignitaries into silence. Bruce Henry, Earth's first ambassador to this distant world, felt his face flush as all eyes in the room fixed on the conspicuous bulge in his environmental suit. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Moments earlier, Bruce had been confidently striding across the polished obsidian floor, ready to usher in a new era of interstellar cooperation. The Jem'Hadar, with their tall, slender frames and iridescent blue skin, had greeted him with a mixture of caution and fascination. His liaison, a female diplomat named Cygnus, had been guiding him through the intricate welcoming ceremony with grace and poise. Then disaster struck. A sudden hiss and pop signaled the catastrophic failure of his suit's lower half. The protective garment, designed to shield him from the planet's alien atmosphere, began to expand rapidly. What started as a minor malfunction quickly ballooned into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Cygnus, her large almond-shaped eyes wide with shock, was the first to break the stunned silence. Her outburst, meant as a surprised observation, now hung in the air like a live grenade. The Jem'Hadar leadership, their elongated fingers twitching nervously, huddled together in urgent whispers. Bruce opened his mouth to explain, but the words caught in his throat. How could he possibly convey the intricacies of human anatomy and malfunctioning technology through the crude translation software? Every attempt seemed to only deepen the misunderstanding, causing more concerned murmurs among the alien crowd. Before he could formulate a coherent response, Bruce found himself being escorted, or rather, herded, towards a sterile-looking facility adjoining the Grand Hall. The Jem'Hadar, clearly rattled by this unexpected biological development, had decided that immediate medical examination was necessary. As the doors of the facility slid shut behind him, Bruce caught a glimpse of Cygnus. The alien diplomat's face was a mask of conflicting emotions: concern, curiosity, and something else he couldn't quite identify. She turned away quickly, reaching for a communication device that looked suspiciously like it might be capable of contacting Earth. Isolated in the examination room, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. This wasn't just about personal embarrassment anymore. The fate of human Jem'Hadar relations, perhaps humanity's entire standing in the galactic community, now teetered on the edge of disaster. All because of a faulty pressure seal and an anatomical misunderstanding. As he heard the distant sound of excited chatter and hurried footsteps outside, Bruce realized the news was spreading fast. The Jem'Hadar, a species that prided itself on control and dignity, was about to tear itself apart with speculation about human biology. He could almost feel the carefully negotiated ties between their worlds, fraying with each passing second. Somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, Bruce knew that other eyes were watching. The Kzinti, humanity's rivals in the galactic arena, would no doubt seize upon this chaos with gleeful opportunism. One miscalculation, one wrong word, and Earth could find itself isolated, its hard-won place among the stars snatched away. As the sound of approaching medical personnel grew louder, Bruce squared his shoulders. He was a trained diplomat, Earth's chosen representative. It was time to turn this farce into a triumph of cross-cultural understanding. Somehow, he had to bridge the gap between human and Jem'Hadar, to explain the unexplainable, and to do it all without causing further offense or misunderstanding. The examination room door slid open. Bruce Henry, ambassador of Earth, took a deep breath and prepared to tackle the strangest challenge of his career, explaining human genitalia to an alien race, one careful word at a time. As the examination room door slid open, Bruce found himself face-to-face with a team of Jem'Hadar medical personnel. Their iridescent blue skin seemed to shimmer under the harsh lights of the facility, their elongated fingers deftly manipulating unfamiliar instruments. At the forefront stood Dr. Zix, a tall, slender figure whose large, almond-shaped eyes regarded Bruce with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed apprehension. "Ambassador Henry," Dr. Zix's voice crackled through the translation device, "we must conduct a thorough examination to ensure your biological compatibility with our environment." Bruce nodded, acutely aware of the expanded lower half of his environmental suit. Of course, Doctor. I assure you, this is merely a malfunction of my protective gear. There's no cause for alarm regarding human anatomy. Dr. Zix's antennae twitched slightly, a gesture Bruce had come to recognize as skepticism. Without further discussion, the medical team ushered him towards a sleek, oval-shaped platform in the center of the room. As Bruce lay down, a humming field of energy enveloped him. Holographic displays sprung to life around the Jem'Hadar scientists, showcasing intricate scans of his body. Their elongated fingers danced over the controls, adjusting parameters and zooming in on various areas. Fascinating, Dr. Zix murmured, his eyes fixed on a particular section of the display. The internal structures are unlike anything in our biological database. Bruce attempted to crane his neck to see the screens, but the energy field held him firmly in place. What exactly are you seeing, Doctor? Before Dr. Zix could respond, a commotion erupted outside the examination room. The door slid open once more, revealing Cygnus. Her blue skin flushed a deeper shade with exertion. Ambassador Henry, she said, her voice a mix of concern and curiosity. I've initiated contact with your home planet. We're awaiting detailed information about human physiology. Dr. Zix's antenna quivered with excitement. Excellent work, Diplomat Cygnus. This data will be crucial for our analysis. As the examination continued, Bruce could sense the growing tension in the room. The Jem'Hadar scientists huddled around their displays, their whispered conversations becoming increasingly animated. Despite his diplomatic training, Bruce felt a knot of anxiety forming in his stomach. The fate of human Jem'Hadar relations hung in the balance, all because of a faulty pressure seal. Meanwhile, in the vast expanse of space, a Kzinti warship silently drifted, its advanced sensors trained on the communications between Jem'Hadar and Earth. Admiral Kirsch, a battle-scarred veteran with piercing yellow eyes, studied the scrambled transmissions with growing interest. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for, Kirsch growled to his assembled officers. Prepare a covert ops team. We'll turn this human blunder into our advantage. Back on Jem'Hadar, the planet's social media networks were ablaze with speculation. Holographic projections of what Jem'Hadar citizens imagined human anatomy to be like flooded public spaces, each rendition more outlandish than the last. The government, struggling to contain the spread of misinformation, implemented a planet-wide quarantine for all human visitors. In the examination room, Dr. Zix's eyes widened as he studied a new set of scans. Ambassador, he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of awe and concern. Your reproductive organs, they're internal. This is unprecedented in our understanding of mammalian species. Bruce felt a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead. Doctor, I assure you, this is perfectly normal for humans. If we could just wait for the information from Earth. But Dr. Zix was already turning to his colleagues, engaged in a heated debate about the implications of this discovery. Words like biological contamination and interspecies compatibility floated through the air, each one driving a spike of worry deeper into Bruce's heart. Cygnus, who had been quietly observing from the corner, suddenly straightened. I need to speak with the ambassador alone, she announced, her tone brooking no argument. It's a matter of diplomatic urgency. As the medical team filed out, Bruce felt the energy field dissipate. He sat up, grateful for the momentary reprieve. Cygnus approached, her large eyes filled with an emotion Bruce couldn't quite decipher. Ambassador, she began, her voice low, I need to understand. Your anatomy, your biology, it's causing quite a stir among my people. Can you explain it to me, in your own words? Bruce took a deep breath, weighing his words carefully. This conversation could shape the future of human Jem'Hadar relations. As he opened his mouth to speak, a faint noise caught his attention. A soft beep, almost imperceptible, coming from somewhere within the medical facility. Unbeknownst to Bruce and Cygnus, the Kzinti infiltration team had breached the facility's outer defenses. As they silently made their way through the sterile corridors, the fate of multiple species hung in the balance, all hinging on a simple conversation about human biology. Bruce's eyes darted to the source of the beep, a small device nestled in the corner of the examination room. Before he could voice his concern, Cygnus stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Ambassador, we don't have much time. I've received intelligence that your presence here has attracted unwanted attention. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the facility, their piercing wail shattering the tense silence. Cygnus's antennae twitched in agitation as she quickly assessed the situation. We need to move now. Without waiting for a response, she grabbed Bruce's arm and led him towards a concealed panel in the wall. Her long fingers danced across a hidden keypad, and the panel slid open with a soft hiss. Wait, Bruce protested as Cygnus ushered him into the dimly lit passage beyond. My environmental suit. No time, Cygnus cut him off, pressing a folded garment into his hands. Change into this. It's a standard medical gown. It will have to do. As they hurried through the narrow maintenance tunnel, Bruce awkwardly shimmed into the alien garment. The fabric felt cool and slightly slick against his skin, a stark contrast to the rigid confines of his malfunctioning suit. Cygnus, Bruce panted as they rounded a corner, the distant sound of shouting echoing behind them. What's going on? Who's after us? The Jem'Hadar diplomat's large eyes gleamed in the low light. It appears the Kzinti have taken an interest in our anatomical misunderstanding. They've breached our outer defenses. Bruce's stomach lurched. The Kzinti, humanity's galactic rivals. Here? This diplomatic snafu was rapidly spiraling into a potential interstellar incident. As they navigated the labyrinthine passages, Cygnus's curiosity got the better of her. Ambassador, while we have this moment, could you explain? Your anatomy, I mean. It's causing quite a stir among my people. Bruce felt his face flush, acutely aware of the thin medical gown. Well, you see, human reproductive organs are internal. What you saw earlier was just a malfunction of my protective gear. Cygnus's antennae quivered with fascination. Internal? But how do you... for reproduction? Their conversation was abruptly cut short as the tunnel opened into a bustling public square. Bruce blinked, momentarily disoriented by the sudden shift from claustrophobic darkness to open space. Around them, a crowd of Jem'Hadar citizens milled about, their iridescent skins shimmering under the alien sun. As heads turned towards the disheveled human and his Jem'Hadar companion, a ripple of recognition spread through the crowd. Murmurs grew into a dull roar as more and more eyes fixed on Bruce. It's him! The human with the strange anatomy? Is it true what they're saying? Bruce's diplomatic instincts kicked in. This was a pivotal moment, a chance to address the misconceptions directly. He stepped forward, raising his hands in a placating gesture. Citizens of Jem'Hadar, he began, his voice carrying across the suddenly hushed square. I understand there has been some confusion about human biology. Allow me to explain. A series of sharp cracks split the air, cutting off Bruce's words. From the shadows at the edge of the square emerged a group of figures, their feline features and sleek combat suits, unmistakably Kzinti. Nobody move, growled the lead Kzinti, his amber eyes fixed on Bruce. The human comes with us. Panic erupted in the square. Jem'Hadar citizens scattered, their shimmering forms creating a chaotic light show as they fled. Bruce felt Cygnus's hand on his arm, pulling him back towards the relative safety of the maintenance tunnel. But before they could retreat, a new commotion arose from the opposite side of the square. A delegation of Earth officials, led by Ambassador Harris, burst onto the scene, flanked by agitated Jem'Hadar security forces. Bruce, Harris called out, his face a mask of concern and confusion. What in blazes is going on here? As if in response, every display screen in the square suddenly flickered to life. The face of a Kzinti officer filled the screens, his fangs bared in a predatory grin. People of Jem'Hadar, the Kzinti's voice boomed across the square. Beware the humans and their biological weapons. Their anatomy is a threat to your very existence. Bruce's heart sank as he watched the panic spread anew among the gathered Jem'Hadar. The situation was spiraling out of control. With Kzinti forces closing in from one side, Earth officials and Jem'Hadar security on the other, and a sea of terrified alien citizens between them, Bruce realized he was standing at the epicenter of a diplomatic powder keg. In that moment, as the chaos swirled around him, Bruce made a decision. He stepped forward, away from Cygnus's protective grasp, and raised his voice above the din. "Everyone, please listen to me," he called out, his words carrying a desperate edge. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I can explain everything." All eyes in the square turned to Bruce, Jem'Hadar, human, and Kzinti alike. The fate of interstellar relations hung on his next words. Bruce took a deep breath, acutely aware of the flimsy medical gown he wore, and prepared to give the most important biology lesson of his life. Life. The square fell silent, all eyes fixed on the human in the flimsy medical gown. Bruce swallowed hard, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "Citizens of Jem'Hadar, honored guests, and unexpected visitors," he said, nodding towards the Kzinti forces. "I stand before you not as a threat, but as a fellow sentient being seeking understanding. The confusion about human anatomy stems from a simple misunderstanding, one I hope to clarify today." As Bruce spoke, Cygnus stepped forward, her melodious voice translating his words into the lilting tones of the Jem'Hadar language. Her own expression was a mixture of fascination and drive as she relayed concepts that were as new to her as they were to her fellow citizens. "Humans, like many species in the galaxy, have internal reproductive organs," Bruce explained, gesturing to his body. "What you witnessed earlier was merely a malfunction in my environmental suit, not a unique biological feature." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Bruce could see confusion giving way to curiosity on many Jem'Hadar faces. Encouraged, he pressed on, delving into the basics of human anatomy and reproduction. As if on cue, a commotion at the edge of the square drew attention. Ambassador Harris and his team burst onto the scene, their arms laden with portable holographic projectors. They quickly set up the devices, filling the air with shimmering, three-dimensional images of human anatomy. "Perfect timing," Bruce said, relief evident in his voice. He gestured to the rotating hologram of a human skeleton. "As you can see, our internal structure is not so different from your own. We have bones, organs, and yes, reproductive systems that are housed within our bodies." The crowd's attention was now fully captured. Even the Kzinti forces seemed momentarily transfixed by the detailed holograms. Bruce could see the hostility in their eyes wavering, replaced by a reluctant curiosity. However, the moment of peace was shattered as Commander Razorclaw, the Kzinti leader, snarled an order to his troops. "Don't be fooled by their tricks. Attack now before they can spread more lies." The Kzinti warriors surged forward, energy weapons humming to life, but they were met with an unexpected resistance. Captain Zarek, leading a contingent of Jem'Hadar security forces, moved swiftly to intercept the attackers. "Protect the humans and our citizens," Zarek's voice boomed across the square. Chaos erupted as energy blasts crisscrossed the air. Bruce found himself pushed to the ground by Cygnus, her lithe body shielding him from the barrage. Around them, Jem'Hadar civilians scrambled for cover, their iridescent skin reflecting the flashes of weapons fire. In the midst of the firefight, Bruce noticed a group of Jem'Hadar children cowering behind a fallen piece of architecture. Without hesitation, he broke free from Cygnus's protective grasp and sprinted towards them, ducking and weaving through the crossfire. "Ambassador, wait!" Cygnus called after him. But Bruce was already halfway across the square. Reaching the children, Bruce quickly assessed the situation. The debris providing their cover was unstable, threatening to collapse at any moment. With a grunt of effort, he braced himself against the largest piece, using his body to reinforce the makeshift shelter. "It's okay," he said softly to the wide-eyed Jem'Hadar younglings. "I've got you. We'll get you to safety." As he held the position, Bruce became aware of a faint buzzing sound. Looking up, he saw a swarm of tiny drones circling the square, their cameras capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. Across the planet, Jem'Hadar citizens watched in awe as the human ambassador risked his life to protect their children. The live footage, broadcast on every available channel, was rapidly shifting public opinion. In the government center, Prime Minister Xylantha observed the scene with growing admiration. She turned to her advisors, her decision made. "Prepare a planet-wide broadcast. It's time our people heard the truth about our human allies." Back in the square, the tide of battle was turning. The Jem'Hadar security forces, bolstered by the arrival of Earth's diplomatic security team, were pushing back the Kzinti attackers. Bruce, still sheltering the Jem'Hadar children, saw an opening. "Cygnus!" he called out. The Jem'Hadar diplomat, who had been providing cover fire with a borrowed weapon, turned at the sound of his voice. "We need to get these kids out of here." Working together, Bruce and Cygnus guided the children through the chaos of the square, using the ongoing firefight as cover. As they reached the safety of a nearby building, Bruce turned back to the battle, his mind racing. "We need to end this quickly," he said, his eyes scanning the scene. That's when he spotted Commander Razorclaw, the Kzinti leader, activating a personal shield device. The shimmering energy field surrounded the feline warrior, deflecting all incoming fire. Bruce's eyes narrowed as he studied the shield. There was something familiar about the technology, a weakness he had encountered in his diplomatic briefings. He turned to Captain Zarek, who had just dispatched another Kzinti attacker. "Captain, I have an idea," Bruce said, quickly outlining his plan. Zarek's expression was skeptical, but he nodded in agreement. "It's a long shot, human," the Jem'Hadar captain said, "but at this point, I'm willing to try anything." As Bruce and Zarek put their plan into motion, gathering a mixed team of humans and Jem'Hadar, the battle in the square reached its crescendo. Commander Razorclaw, secure behind his energy shield, barked orders to his dwindling forces. "Push forward! Victory is within our grasp!" But even as the words left his mouth, Razorclaw felt a strange tingling sensation. He looked down to see his shield flickering, its energy signature destabilizing. Across the square, Bruce stood with a group of Jem'Hadar technicians, their combined efforts focused on a hastily assembled device. "It's working," Bruce called out, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and excitement. "Keep it up!" As Razorclaw's shield collapsed, the Kzinti commander found himself surrounded by a joint force of humans and Jem'Hadar. The battle was over. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the wounded were tended to, Bruce found himself at the center of a gathering crowd. Jem'Hadar citizens, their initial fear replaced by curiosity and gratitude, pressed close, eager to learn more about their human allies. Prime Minister Zalantha's voice echoed across the square as her planet-wide broadcast began. "Citizens of Jem'Hadar, today we have witnessed the true nature of our human friends. Let us embrace this opportunity for understanding and cooperation." As Bruce prepared to address the crowd once more, he caught sight of Cygnus. The Jem'Hadar diplomat's eyes shone with a new light, a mixture of admiration and something deeper. Bruce felt a flutter in his chest, a reminder that even in the midst of interstellar politics, there was always room for more personal connections. But even as the mood in the square turned celebratory, Bruce knew that challenges lay ahead. In the government center, he could see a group of conservative Jem'Hadar leaders, led by Councillor Vexara, watching the proceedings with wary eyes. Their concerns would need to be addressed if the human Jem'Hadar alliance was to move forward. And beyond the planet's atmosphere, unnoticed by those on the ground, a sleek Arcturian ship slipped into orbit. Its sensors swept the planet's surface, gathering data on the day's events. The isolationist species had taken notice, and the ripples of this day would soon spread far beyond the Jem'Hadar system. As Bruce stepped forward to continue his impromptu biology lesson, now armed with the full support of the Earth diplomatic team and their visual aids, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger adventure. The dust had barely settled in the square when Bruce found himself thrust into a whirlwind of diplomatic activity. Prime Minister Zalantha's broadcast had set the stage for a new era of human Jem'Hadar relations, but the real work was just beginning. Within days, Bruce and Cygnus were summoned to the Jem'Hadar High Council chambers, where they were tasked with spearheading a groundbreaking cultural exchange program. "Ambassador Bruce, Diplomat Cygnus," Zalantha addressed them, her multifaceted eyes glinting with purpose. "Your actions in the square have opened a door. Now, we must step through it together." Bruce nodded, acutely aware of the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "We're honored, Prime Minister. What exactly did you have in mind?" Zalantha's answer was bold and unprecedented, A team of Jem'Hadar scientists would travel to Earth, while a group of human researchers would come to Jem'Hadar. The goal, to study each other's biology and social customs in depth. As Bruce and Cygnus left the council chambers, they exchanged a look of excitement tinged with apprehension. The scope of their task was enormous, and the potential for both breakthrough and disaster equally vast. Weeks of intense preparation followed. Bruce worked tirelessly with the Earth Diplomatic Corps to arrange for the Jem'Hadar delegation's visit. Meanwhile, Cygnus coordinated with her people to prepare for the arrival of the human researchers. The day of the exchange arrived with great fanfare. On Earth, a sleek Jem'Hadar ship descended through the atmosphere, carrying Dr. Zix and her team of eager scientists. Bruce stood on the landing pad, flanked by a welcoming committee of Earth's top officials. As the ship's ramp lowered, Dr. Zix emerged, her iridescent skin shimmering in the sunlight. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of the human crowd, so different from her own people. "Welcome to Earth, Dr. Zix," Bruce said, extending his hand in greeting. Zix hesitated for a moment before reaching out to shake it, her touch cool and slightly electric against Bruce's skin. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are eager to begin our studies." Over the next few days, Bruce accompanied the Jem'Hadar delegation on a whirlwind tour of human facilities. In a state-of-the-art hospital, Dr. Zix and her team watched in fascination as ultrasound images revealed a human fetus growing in its mother's womb. "Incredible," Zix murmured, her normally composed demeanor slipping as she leaned in for a closer look. "The offspring develops entirely within the parent's body?" Bruce nodded, suppressing a smile at the Jem'Hadar scientist's wide-eyed wonder. "That's right. It's a process that takes about 9 Earth months." The tour of the maternity ward proved even more eye-opening. As they observed a live birth, Dr. Zix's antennae quivered with a mixture of shock and amazement. Her reaction, captured on video by one of her assistants, quickly went viral on Jem'Hadar social media platforms. Meanwhile, on Jem'Hadar, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team of human xenobiologists were making their own startling discoveries. Cygnus guided them through the intricate network of Jem'Hadar reproductive facilities, explaining the complex process of genetic material exchange. "So you're saying that Jem'Hadar reproduction involves multiple individuals contributing to a communal genetic pool?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, her voice filled with scientific excitement. Cygnus nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing with pride as she explained her species' unique biology. "Correct. It allows for a diverse mixing of traits and helps maintain the overall health of our population." As both teams delved deeper into their studies, the fundamental differences between human and Jem'Hadar biology became increasingly apparent. These revelations sparked intense debates in scientific circles and beyond. On Jem'Hadar, Counselor Vex Ara seized upon these differences as ammunition for her conservative agenda. In a fiery speech before the High Council, she argued for stricter regulations on human Jem'Hadar interactions. "How can we consider close relations with a species so fundamentally different from our own?" Vexara's voice rang out, her supporters nodding in agreement. "The potential for cultural contamination, not to mention the biological incompatibility, poses too great a risk to our society." Prime Minister Xylantha listened to these concerns with a grave expression. When Vexara finished, Xylantha rose to address the council. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice calm but resolute, "I hear your concerns, and I share them. But I also see an opportunity. I propose we establish a joint human Jem'Hadar research facility dedicated to studying these very issues of compatibility and developing technologies to bridge our biological differences." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some in support, others in vehement opposition. As the debate raged, a new player entered the game. An Arcturian diplomatic ship entered Jem'Hadar orbit, its arrival sending ripples through the political landscape. Ambassador Zin, a respected Arcturian mediator, requested an audience with both human and Jem'Hadar leadership. As preparations for this crucial meeting began, Bruce and Cygnus found themselves at the center of a growing controversy. Their close relationship, once a symbol of successful cooperation, was now scrutinized from all angles. "Bruce," Cygnus said one evening, her voice tinged with worry. "Have you seen the latest reports? They're questioning the appropriateness of our friendship." Bruce sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've seen them. It seems our biology isn't the only thing under the microscope these days." As they grappled with these personal and political challenges, reports reached them of Kzinti activity in the shadows. Rumors of dangerous human-gem-hodder hybrids began to circulate, playing on the fears and uncertainties surrounding their newfound biological knowledge. With tensions rising and public opinion increasingly divided, Bruce and Cygnus knew that the upcoming Galactic Council meeting would be crucial. As they prepared their presentations and arguments, both felt the weight of not just two worlds, but potentially the entire galaxy, resting on their shoulders. The future of human-gem-hodder relations hung in the balance, and as the council chamber doors prepared to open, Bruce and Cygnus exchanged a determined look. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, embodying the very cooperation they fought to protect. The Galactic Council chamber doors opened, and Bruce and Cygnus entered side by side. As they took their seats, the gravity of the situation greatly troubled upon them. The fate of human-gem-hodder relations hung in the balance, but they had come prepared with a bold proposal that would shake the foundations of interspecies diplomacy. As the council session began, Bruce stood to address the assembled delegates. His voice steady, he announced, "Distinguished representatives, we stand at a crossroads. To demonstrate our commitment to bridging the gap between our species, diplomat Cygnus and I have decided to undergo a groundbreaking medical procedure that will allow us to have a biological child together." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber, followed by a cacophony of voices. Some delegates leapt to their feet in protest, while others murmured in hushed excitement. Councillor Vexara's face contorted in disgust, her voice cutting through the din. "This is an abomination. You would defile the purity of our species for this experiment?" Prime Minister Xylantha raised a hand, calling for order. "This is certainly an unexpected development," she said, her multifaceted eyes fixed on Bruce and Cygnus. "Please elaborate on this procedure." Cygnus stepped forward, her luminescent skin pulsing with a mix of perseverance and nervousness. "We have assembled a team of the finest xenobiologists from both our worlds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Zix have agreed to lead this endeavor." As if on cue, the two scientists entered the chamber. Dr. Rodriguez spoke first, her voice clear and confident. "We've established a research facility on a neutral space station orbiting a gas giant in the Proxima Centauri system. Our team is prepared to overcome the biological barriers between humans and Gem-hodder." The announcement sent shockwaves beyond the council chamber. Within hours, news of the proposed procedure spread across Earth and Gem-hodder, igniting fierce debates and polarizing public opinion. On Earth, Senator Marcus Blackwood wasted no time in denouncing the project. Standing before a crowd of supporters, he shouted, "This hybridization is nothing short of an attack on human genetic purity. We cannot allow this unnatural experiment to proceed." Meanwhile, on Gem-hodder, Councillor Vexara's supporters took to the streets. Thousands gathered in the same square where Bruce had first addressed the curious Gem-hodder citizens, now holding signs that read, "Preserve Gem-hodder culture," and "Stop the hybrid threat." As tensions escalated, Bruce and Cygnus found themselves at the center of a media storm. During a press conference at the Earth Embassy on Gem-hodder, a journalist asked, "How do you respond to accusations that this procedure is unnatural and potentially dangerous?" Bruce leaned into the microphone, his expression resolute. "Change is never easy, but it's often necessary. This procedure represents the next step in our evolving relationship with the Gem-hodder. It's not about erasing our differences, but celebrating them and finding common ground." Cygnus nodded in agreement. "We understand the concerns, but we believe this child will be a symbol of hope and unity for both our species." As preparations for the procedure intensified, security around the space station tightened. Captain Zarek, now in command of a joint human-Gem-hodder task force, oversaw the protective cordon surrounding the facility. Zarek stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the array of ships under his command. "Maintain alert status," he ordered. "We've received intelligence suggesting possible Kzinti interference." Unbeknownst to Zarek, a Xinti stealth ship was already approaching the station, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. On its bridge, Commander Razorclaw, his fur jam packed with anticipation, addressed his crew. Remember, our primary objective is to disrupt the procedure and, if possible, capture the human and Gem Hadar for study. Admiral Kirsch sees this potential hybrid as a threat to our dominance in the sector. We will not fail him. As the day of the procedure drew near, an unexpected player entered the fray. Ambassador Zin of the Arcturians requested an urgent meeting with the research team. In a secured conference room aboard the station, Zin addressed Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix. "We have been observing your efforts with great interest," Zin said, his silver eyes gleaming. "The Arcturians are prepared to offer advanced genetic engineering technology that could significantly increase your chances of success." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. "That's incredibly generous, but I have to ask, why now? Why get involved at this stage?" Zin's expression remained impassive. "The Arcturians believe that the outcome of this procedure will have far-reaching consequences for galactic relations. We wish to ensure its success." As the scientists debated the ethical implications of accepting the Arcturian offer, a groundswell of support began to emerge among younger generations on both Earth and Gem Hadar. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like Books, Hybrid Hope, and Unity Child. Grassroots organizations coordinated rallies in major cities, with young humans and Gem Hadar standing side by side, holding signs that read, "Love knows no species." The day of the procedure arrived, coinciding with the reconvening of the Galactic Council. As delegates filed into the chamber to debate the future of interspecies relations, all eyes turned to the live feed from the space station. In the operating room, Bruce and Cygnus lay on adjacent beds, their hands intertwined. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix moved efficiently around them, preparing for the complex procedure. The Arcturian technology hummed softly in the background, its purpose still a subject of debate among the team. As the anesthesia began to take effect, Bruce squeezed Cygnus's hand. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "we're in this together." Cygnus's skin pulsed with a warm glow. "Together," she agreed, her voice fading as she drifted into unconsciousness. Just as Dr. Rodriguez was about to make the first incision, alarms blared throughout the station. Captain Zarek's voice crackled over the intercom. "Security breach! All personnel to battle stations!" The Xinti stealth ship had begun its assault, its raiders led by the vengeful Commander Razorclaw. As the first explosions rocked the station, the fate of Bruce, Cygnus, and their unprecedented procedure hung in the balance. The next few hours would determine not just their future, but the course of galactic history. The Xinti attack on the space station erupted with sudden ferocity, shattering the tense atmosphere of anticipation that had surrounded the groundbreaking procedure. Alarms blared through the corridors as Captain Zarek's voice crackled over the intercom. "Security breach! All personnel to battle stations!" In the operating room, Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix exchanged alarmed glances before returning their focus to the delicate task at hand. The Arcturian technology hummed with increased intensity as they worked to combine Bruce and Cygnus's genetic material. "We can't stop now," Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "We're at the critical stage." Dr. Zix nodded, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Agreed. The embryo is forming. We must complete the process." As the scientists worked, the space station shuddered under the assault of Xinti weapons. The lights flickered ominously, causing Dr. Rodriguez to hold her breath. A power failure now would be catastrophic. In the corridor outside, the sound of weapon fire and shouted orders grew louder. Captain Zarek's forces engaged the Xinti raiders in close-quarters combat, turning the pristine research facility into a battlefield. Bruce's eyes snapped open as the anesthesia began to wear off. The alarms and sounds of battle cut through his groggy state, instantly sharpening his senses. He turned his head to see Cygnus still unconscious on the adjacent bed, her luminescent skin pulsing weakly. Making a split-second decision, Bruce pushed himself up, ignoring the dizziness that threatened to overwhelm him. "I have to help defend the station," he said, his voice hoarse. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her work, concern etched on her face. Bruce, you're in no condition to... But Bruce was already on his feet, stumbling towards a nearby storage locker. He retrieved an emergency weapon, his military training kicking in despite his weakened state. I can't just lie here while the station is under attack. I have to protect Cygnus and our child. The word hung in the air, filled with both wonder and uncertainty. Bruce cast one last look at Cygnus before heading towards the door. Keep them safe, he said to the doctors, then plunged into the chaos beyond. The corridor outside the medical bay was a scene of frenzied activity. Jem'Hadar soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, setting up defensive positions and coordinating their efforts through encrypted comm channels. Bruce joined a group taking cover behind a makeshift barricade, his presence drawing surprised looks from the Jem'Hadar. Sir, you should be in the medical bay, a young soldier said, his voice tinged with concern and respect. Bruce checked the charge on his weapon, his hands steady despite the lingering effects of the anesthesia. Not while there's a fight to be won, soldier. What's the situation? Before the soldier could respond, a group of Kzinti raiders rounded the corner, their feline forms sleek and deadly. Bruce's training took over. He sighted down his weapon and fired, his shot catching the lead Kzinti in the shoulder. The raider went down with a yowl of pain and surprise. The Jem'Hadar soldiers, momentarily stunned by Bruce's quick action, snapped into action. They laid down a withering barrage of fire, forcing the Kzinti to fall back. As the firefight intensified, Bruce felt a surge of adrenaline cutting through his fatigue. He moved from cover to cover, coordinating with the Jem'Hadar soldiers and demonstrating a level of skill that clearly impressed his alien comrades. Back in the medical bay, Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix worked frantically to secure the newly created embryo. The holographic display pulsed with life, showing the miraculous fusion of human and Jem'Hadar DNA. We've done it, Dr. Zix said, his voice filled with awe. A viable hybrid embryo. It's unprecedented. Dr. Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of triumph before the gravity of their situation reasserted itself. We need to get it to safety. Prepare the portable stasis unit. As they worked to transfer the embryo, Cygnus began to stir. Her luminescent skin flickered as she regained consciousness, her multifaceted eyes taking in the scene of controlled chaos around her. Bruce, she called out, her voice weak but filled with concern. Dr. Rodriguez moved to her side. He's helping defend the station. We need to evacuate you and the embryo to a secure location. Cygnus pushed herself up, her commitment overriding her physical weakness. No, I will help defend our child. Meanwhile, on Jem'Hadar, Prime Minister Zalantha received the alarming news of the attack. Her face, usually a mask of calm diplomacy, showed a flash of genuine concern. Without hesitation, she called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. As delegates hurried to assemble, Zalantha prepared her argument. The attack on the research station wasn't just an assault on a scientific endeavor. It was a direct challenge to the future of human-Jem'Hadar relations. She would use this crisis to push for greater cooperation between their species, turning the Kzinti's destructive actions into a catalyst for unity. Back on the station, Commander Razorclaw realized his plan was unraveling. The combined forces of humans and Jem'Hadar were proving more formidable than anticipated. With a snarl of frustration, he activated a hidden device, initiating a process that would destabilize the station's reactor core. If we cannot have the hybrid, no one will, he growled to his second-in-command. Prepare to withdraw. As alarms blared with renewed urgency, Bruce and Captain Zarek's forces pushed the Kzinti back towards their entry point. The station trembled ominously, the reactor's growing instability evident in the flickering lights and faltering gravity. In the medical bay, Ambassador Zinn approached Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix, his silver eyes gleaming with an intensity that belied his calm demeanor. Doctors, the situation has escalated beyond our predictions. The Arcturian device has capabilities we haven't disclosed. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from the stasis unit, her eyebrows furrowed. What are you talking about? Zinn's voice was steady as he explained. Our technology can be repurposed as a non-lethal weapon against the Kzinti. It could incapacitate them by temporarily altering their genetic structure. Dr. Zix's multifaceted eyes widened. That's, that's incredible. But the ethical implications... We may not have a choice, Cygnus interjected, her voice growing stronger. If it can stop this attack and save the station, we must consider it. As they debated the merits and risks of using the Arcturian technology as a weapon, Bruce and the Jem'Hadar forces fought their way towards the medical bay. The Kzinti, despite their ferocity, found themselves outmatched by the unexpected alliance. Bruce's actions, broadcast throughout the station's internal communications network, began to shift perceptions. Jem'Hadar soldiers who had harbored doubts about humans watched in amazement as Bruce fought alongside them with skill and courage. The battle reached a crescendo as both sides converged on the medical bay. Bruce, his face streaked with sweat and grime, burst through the door just as Razorclaw and his remaining forces approached from the opposite direction. Time seemed to slow as Bruce's eyes met Cygnus's across the room. In that moment, surrounded by the chaos of battle and the uncertainty of their future, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The fate of the hybrid embryo, the station, and perhaps the future of human-Jem'Hadar relations now hung in the balance. As Razorclaw raised his weapon, Bruce and Cygnus prepared to make their stand, the Arcturian device humming with untapped potential between them. As Razorclaw raised his weapon, time seemed to freeze. Bruce's eyes darted between Cygnus, the humming Arcturian device, and the Kzinti commander. In that split second, he made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "Everyone out!" Bruce shouted, lunging for the Arcturian device. "I'll activate it and hold them off." Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. "Bruce, no, the risk is too great." But Bruce was already moving, his fingers dancing across the device's controls. Cygnus pushed herself up from the medical bed, her luminescent skin pulsing with drive. "I'm staying," she declared, her multifaceted eyes locked on Bruce. Before anyone could protest further, the station shuddered violently. Alarms blared with renewed urgency, and Captain Zar-X's voice crackled over the intercom. "Reactor core destabilizing. All personnel evacuate immediately." Dr. Rodriguez hesitated for a moment, torn between her duty to her patient and the need to save the hybrid embryo. Dr. Zix made the decision for her, scooping up the stasis unit containing their groundbreaking creation. "We must go," he said, his voice firm but tinged with regret. "They've made their choice." As the medical team rushed out, Ambassador Zinn lingered, his silver eyes fixed on Bruce and Cygnus. "You don't know the full capabilities of this device," he said, his tone cryptic. "Remember, cooperation is key." With that, he swept out of the room, leaving Bruce and Cygnus alone with the advancing Kzinti forces. Bruce's military training kicked in as he quickly assessed their options. "We need to buy time for the evacuation," he said, positioning himself between Cygnus and the door. "Can you interface with the station's systems from here?" Cygnus nodded, her fingers already dancing across a nearby console. "I can reroute emergency power to the containment fields. It might slow the reactor's deterioration." As they worked, the sound of weapon fire grew closer. Razorclaw's voice echoed through the corridor, full of vengeful fury. "Find them! The hybrid must not survive!" Bruce's hands hovered over the Arcturian device, its purpose still not fully understood. "Zinn said cooperation is key," he muttered. "Cygnus, I think we need to activate this together." Without hesitation, Cygnus moved to his side. As her hand touched the device, it hummed louder, its surfaces illuminating with intricate patterns. Suddenly, the door burst open. Razorclaw stormed in, flanked by his remaining Kzinti warriors. "It's over!" he snarled, raising his weapon. In that moment, Bruce and Cygnus locked eyes. A silent understanding passed between them, transcending species and biology. Together, they pressed the final sequence on the Arcturian device. A wave of energy pulsed outward, invisible but palpable. The Kzinti stumbled, their expressions shifting from rage to confusion. Razorclaw's weapon clattered to the floor as he clutched his head. What have you done?" he growled, his voice weakening. Bruce stood tall, surprise and hope mingling in his voice. "It worked, but how?" Cygnus's eyes widened with realization. The device, it's altering their genetic structure, temporarily incapacitating them without causing harm. As the Kzinti slumped to the ground, incapacitated but alive, the station shuddered again. The reactor was still critical. "We're not done yet," Bruce said, turning back to the console. "We need to contain that reactor." Working in perfect synchronization, Bruce and Cygnus began the delicate process of interfacing the Arcturian technology with the station's systems. Bruce's quick thinking complemented Cygnus's deep understanding of Jem'Hadar technology, creating a synergy that seemed to transcend their individual abilities. As they worked, the evacuation continued throughout the station. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Zix fought their way through chaotic corridors, the precious hybrid embryo secure in its stasis unit. Captain Zarek's forces engaged the remaining Kzinti, pushing them back towards their entry point. In the midst of the chaos, Ambassador Zin's voice came over the intercom, clear and commanding. "Attention, all personnel. The Arcturians offer a solution, but it requires the cooperation of both humans and Jem'Hadar. Report to your designated stations immediately." Throughout the station, humans and Jem'Hadar who had been fighting side by side looked at each other with new understanding. The barriers between them seemed to dissolve in the face of their shared crisis. Back in the medical bay, Bruce and Cygnus had just finished their preparations when Captain Zarek burst in, followed by a mixed group of human and Jem'Hadar crew members. "We're here to help," Zarek announced, his eyes taking in the incapacitated Kzinti with surprise. Bruce nodded, gesturing to the complex array of Arcturian technology now integrated with the station's systems. "We need every hand we can get. The reactor's going critical, and we have one chance to contain it." As they worked, Bruce couldn't help but marvel at the sight. Humans and Jem'Hadar moved in concert, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared goal. Cygnus coordinated the effort, her intimate knowledge of both species allowing her to bridge any communication gaps. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. Sweat beaded on Bruce's forehead as he manipulated controls that seemed to defy human understanding. Beside him, a young Jem'Hadar soldier worked with equal intensity, their movements perfectly synchronized. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocked the station. Alarms blared with renewed urgency. "Containment field collapsing," Cygnus shouted. "We need more power." Without hesitation, Bruce made a decision. "Reroute power from life support," he ordered. "We won't need it if we're all dead anyway." Captain Zarek nodded grimly, relaying the order. Throughout the station, lights dimmed and air circulation slowed as every available ounce of power was diverted to the containment effort. As the reactor reached critical mass, the combined Arcturian and Jem'Hadar technology hummed with incredible power. A shimmering field of energy enveloped the reactor core, visible even through layers of shielding. For a moment, it seemed as if the universe itself held its breath. Then slowly the alarms began to quiet. The violent shaking of the station subsided to a gentle tremor, then stillness. Bruce looked up from his console, his eyes meeting Cygnus's. "Did we—" Cygnus nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing with relief and joy. "We did it. The reactor is contained." A cheer went up from the assembled crew, humans and Jem'Hadar alike. In that moment of shared triumph, the last vestiges of distrust between the species seemed to evaporate. As the celebration continued around them, Bruce took Cygnus's hand. "We make a pretty good team," he said softly. Cygnus's skin glowed warmly. "Yes," she replied, her multifaceted eyes shimmering with emotion. "We do." Their moment was interrupted by Captain Zarek. "We're not finished yet," he said, his voice grim. "Razorclaw and his remaining forces are cornered in the docking bay. They're making a last stand." Bruce straightened, his face set with drive. "Then let's finish this," he said. "Together." As they moved out, Bruce and Cygnus at the forefront, the assembled crew fell in behind them. Humans and Jem'Hadar moved as one, united by their shared ordeal and newfound respect for each other. The final confrontation with Razorclaw loomed, but now, against adversity, they faced it not as separate species, but as a unified force. The future of human-Jem'Hadar relations hung in the balance, poised on the edge of a new era of cooperation and understanding.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.